IPOA is almost 10 years old now, and the basic idea of IPOA is to put all the better companies under an umbrella and have them all operating up to a code of conduct. And our code of conduct was written by non-governmental organizations and human rights lawyers and government representatives. We don't replace governments, and that's not the point. But what we do is fill that gap so that a company that's operating, that's contractually compliant, that's operating legally, can still be operating unethically. And that's where we step in as an association and say, okay, you need to fix this. I think for clients, they should be looking for these sorts of things. Does a company have its own code of conduct? Do they know their code of conduct? Are they part of an association with a code of conduct? Does the association enforce its code of conduct? It's not really, I think, so much of a cohesive plan about using more contractors. It's just a reality that if you're not going to use the military, or even if you are going to use the military, you have a role for civilians, for the private sector. And I think what we have in our industry, contingency contractors, are companies that have this risk mitigation capability. So they're able to do these jobs, and it may be helicopters, it may be construction, it may be security, but they have ability to sort of mitigate the risk and operate in fairly dangerous places. Civilians are less likely to be targets, and the reality in Iraq is most of the contractors that we use are Iraqis, and will be so in the future. So I think it makes sense to go this direction. I think in the past, certainly when I did my academic work in Africa, where we had contractors supporting peacekeeping missions and so on, you had a very good partnership between government and contractors. And they really focused on getting the policies done. And there was a huge humanitarian value, a huge value to the taxpayer to have these contractors doing these things, dangerous places, cost effectively. Nowadays, it's a very, very different attitude, and unfortunately, I think that's undermining our policies. We have something I call vengeance contract management, which is essentially a government system or oversight system which rewards finding errors or problems within the contracts, rather than looking at the sort of long-term goal. What is U.S. policy in Iraq? The sort of vengeance contract management aura that we have is essentially rewards contract officers, contract officer representatives to find mistakes in these contracts. That if you're going to go into contingency contracting, you are going to be a target. You are going to have to expect that you're going to receive a lot of criticism. Reputation is very important in the industry, and I think the number one issue for any company is don't embarrass your client. So if you have a bad reputation and you don't do anything to kind of address those problems, then that can come back to haunt you in the long run, and we see that happen again and again. Bad things happen to the best companies, and how the good companies handle it is what sets them apart from the poor companies. Do you sweep it under the rug, or do you actually deal with the issue? Are you forthright about it? Are you honest about it? Is it something that you are going to make clear that this is not a regular incident that happens to the company, that you know how to deal with these problems? That's huge. But a lot of companies, unfortunately, do try to hide these things, and they may hide it for a short time, but sooner or later, bad things that happened in the past will surface and come back to haunt you. And if you don't have a good answer on how you handled that, if you don't have a quote that you can put in front of the press and say, this is how we dealt with this problem and we dealt with it professionally, then it could be a big problem.